a few months late, Zach. Is it months? Is it? I think months at this point from when we wanted to.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but no, it's fine.
It's been
No,
a
we
while.
are back, guys. We do have some new faces to the group. For those who watched us before when we had our show with just Zach, I, and Tony, we have some new faces that'll be joining us this year for it. Unfortunately, did not get to start the season off with the show, but wanted to make sure we bring it back for you guys. Jake and Dalton will be joining us. We also have Casey, who will hopefully be joining us again in the future here. But definitely have a lot to talk about. We've missed out on a lot for the first quarter of the season that we haven't been able to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of the big talking points, at least the things that I thought about, and some other things you guys threw in there too. But let's kick things off. Talk about the game that we weren't able to cover, since we are going to be doing the show probably Fridays or Saturdays around this time. The Thursday night game, which normally wouldn't have a lot to say, but this one not so much, guys.
This was an elite Thursday night game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a Thursday night game, super. I mean, it'd be elite any game, honestly, but definitely for Thursday game, is
Yeah,
11 out of 10
and
game.
especially with two teams in an AFC South matchup that like I feel like or my bad, NFC South matchup that over the years they've been competitive, but I feel like they haven't been as high scoring and as like suspenseful in
Yeah.
that sense. And they get a shootout between Tampa and Atlanta. That's really cool. Like yeah,
Yeah, that's
maybe
good
you would
NFL
see it.
stuff. Yeah,
Maybe you would see it from the Saints every now and then. Maybe Carolina can put out a weird like Andy Dalton like performance every like blue moon, but like to see like two teams that I mean Tampa's been at the top of the NFC South for a while, but Atlanta has been just on the cusp, waiting to get like all the pieces to put together, and to see that to be the future of that division that's really struggled for the last few years. That's awesome.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was the end of that game. Raheem Morris, great fourth down decision.
Yeah,
And it seemed weird going for it on 4th and 15 there, but there's really no downside to it because you have to get a 3-and-out no matter where you are
yeah,
in the field. And it actually worked out because the Bucks didn't even get into field goal position, and they were able to march down and get that field goal. Whereas had they punted, more than likely Tampa Bay ends up probably burying them deep inside their own 20 with more space to punt there, and probably takes more time off the clock too.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where when I saw the fourth down, I'm like, I don't know. But then as the game played, I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand trying to just like, because again, you have the football,
Yeah.
right? You cannot guarantee you'll get it back, even if you have your timeouts, even if they're probably going to just try to run it. They had pretty good success running the football. I know it was a couple big plays mostly that kind of propped up their numbers, but Mayfield had been good at getting first downs with his legs. Like, can't guarantee that you're going to get the ball back. Didn't work out for them in the first down decision, but did ultimately end up winning the game for them
Yeah.
by
You
doing
get
something
another
right.
shot.
Yeah. So, yeah, really fun game. I did have, as those who watched our betting show know, I did have Tampa money line, so that hurt definitely a little bit. Felt good for a while, not gonna lie. Then, of
I
course,
I had taken a 6 point teaser earlier in the week for the Monday night game with Miami, and I took Tennessee. So I had Tennessee +8, and then the I had +7.5. So that was very nice for it to go to overtime, where I knew I was like, okay, like this can't lose. Like
true.
it's impossible.
Yeah,
um,
that's a good point. Yeah,
so
not bad. But any thoughts you want to throw out there, Jake, about it?
Really, no, you guys pretty much said everything I was thinking of saying. I just loved how the Falcons executed late in that game. Like even
Yeah,
the getting the spike off with 1 second left,
that
and that
was
throw
close,
to
but
I think it was Drake London.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
London's the
think
one
he
who caught
caught it
that
with
one.
like
Yeah.
8 or 9 seconds left, and they
Hmm.
managed to spike it. That's just like perfect execution. So
well,
I think,
that's 2 games now too, right? That they've had some like impeccable
yeah,
like
The
late
Eagles,
game
that
Eagles was a
Eagles
great
drive was
game too.
perfect.
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
so that's
legitimately
two
like
that's two in a
perfect.
row where it's just like, man, this is not the Falcons that you've seen from the past couple years. Like now Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins is dealing right now. It's nice to see that the week one might have been an aberration for
Thanks
like
for
what
that,
his play style
Falcons.
was
By
going to
the
be.
way,
Yeah.
Yeah. We're at a weird era in the league right now, I feel like, where it's not like, 5, 10 years ago where it was you either have a future Hall of Fame quarterback or you don't. And we're like you're in contention. Now do you have a reliable veteran who's been around the block that can move your offense?
The block, you say? No.
Didn't even think about that.
There you
Around the
go.
block
Hey,
mention.
Boom. There you go.
But
No.
but yeah, like it's just that seems to be the formula right now.
I think more
Yeah.
specifically, like, because there's been a lot of talk, and I'm guilty of this, and I still think it's mostly true, especially like early in careers for a lot of these guys. You have either quarterbacks that have become true elite pocket passers, and a lot of them are the veteran players. Like, I'd honestly say probably the youngest of them that's a true pocket player is probably Goff at this point. That's elevated himself to being like a true like contention for top 10 quarterback in the league. If you aren't one of those types of veteran quarterbacks, you have to be a either hyper athletic or a great playmaker from the quarterback position to succeed. These older players though are showing that like as long as you have the mental side of things down, as long as you have the arm talent to make incredible throws from the pocket like a Stafford or a Cousins, you can still succeed despite the league kind of trending in that direction, right?
Yeah.
So it's really one of those two I think you have to be is either the playmaker type or at least have some of that in you or the true savvy veteran type.
Breaking news: Brian Daboll just confirmed that Malik Neighbors is still in concussion protocol and will be out for Sunday.
Well, if it makes anybody feel better, I was not picking their ass anyway. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
But that was
Well,
the one thing that made the Giants watchable.
Yes, exactly.
I think
yeah.
one of the bigger issues that is kind of also coming to light is the just overall. I don't want to say, well, it is low quality of play, but it's not fair to them because there's not enough there's not enough development in offensive line play, and like overall offensive line, like there is no depth. There is no such thing as offensive line depth. Like people want to act like, oh, okay, like there's like you have a backup person. Yeah, you might have one who's serviceable.
Steelers about to find out real hard if our backs
Well,
Yeah.
for as
Look at
as
the
a, as a
Saints.
Miami Dolphins fan, for most of the league, you might only have one actual or two actual.
You don't even
good-
have 5 starters anyways. Zach,
no,
and everybody's
exactly,
healthy.
exactly. Most of the league does not have five quality starters on their
Yeah.
offensive line, which is like some of these quarterbacks could be playing a lot better, but given the situation there's it's I mean something that we're going to touch on in just a bit, but like it's the idea of like Miami, like how do you do zero depth or zero investment into an offensive line whatsoever over the course of like the past 5 years outside of Taron Armstead and
Who doesn't play most of the time.
Well, I mean, he plays some, but like even then,
Some.
even then, like you do nothing. Like a lot of these teams, they just refuse. Like, yes, you need the playmakers, but the playmakers can only do something if you have the protection to allow them to get the time to make the plays develop, to develop the lanes, to let the running backs run,
Yeah.
to allow the wide receivers to develop their routes, to let
Yeah.
the quarterbacks read through the plays. Like, no wonder why we're criticizing some quarterbacks as one read quarterbacks. That's all they have the time to do is one read. Like that's
Yeah.
it. So, like, yeah, there's a lot of drop off in play because I think defenses are getting a lot better and like responding a lot. It's a lot easier to respond on defense to advances in offense than it is for offenses to respond and changes to defense. But it's also just a lack of overall depth in like very key areas.
Yeah, I agree. If offensive line play is a big issue, right? We've known that for a while. It's kind of become a trend because of the way the college offenses operate a lot of the time too. And it's kind of trickled down in the sense that a lot of college offenses are getting dumbed down because they get these really talented quarterbacks that are freshmen, sophomores, and they have to play them right away because if they don't, they're going to be out the door, right? They're going to go to either a smaller school and play right away, or they're going to transfer to another big school. So you have to play them. Sometimes they're not ready to run a full-fledged offense, so you have to kind of simplify things. It makes the offensive line protections much more simple. Get the NFL not ready to do true pass sets, not ready to do a lot of the stuff that a lot of offenses want to do. So it creates just this kind of downhill momentum of not good offensive line play coming into the league, right? It takes them a couple of years to get going, at least most of the time. And when they do get going, like you see, like the Andrew Thomases of the world who weren't good as rookies, who are now one of the best tackles, like it works usually eventually, But if you have a young offensive line, it's probably a bad offensive line most of the time, right? That's kind of what you're dealing with. I'm dealing with that right now as a Steelers fan with Roger Jones. But granted, we keep playing him at like right tackle when he is a left tackle, so that's a whole other thing. But that's part of the issue with, I think, quarterback play is it is an extension of offensive line play to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great, especially like the college offense is just where college offense are like, yeah, we're just not going to block certain guys,
Yeah.
and it's not
So
not a great way to teach offensive linemen.
yes, it's all over the place. But no, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that because that's going to continue to be a talking point throughout the year.
Yeah.
But first thing that we wanted to talk about today and kind of break into, and it's been a particularly bad issue for the two teams we're going to talk about. One because of injury, one because of, well, other bad stuff that maybe we wish was injury at this point instead of what it is, but whatever.
Great way to massage that point.
Yeah, just you got to really get in there with that point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Can the Dolphins and Browns overcome their issues at quarterback? Again, the Dolphins' case issues at quarterback being that Tua
Well, yeah, when he
wasn't
comes back in
yep,
2 weeks. Absolutely.
right wasn't playing particularly great to start the year anyway, but then gets his head caved in for the umpteenth time.
Yes, because they're not investing in the offensive line.
Well, I mean, he ran into DeMar Hamlin in that case.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he kind of did it to himself.
Okay, so but time out. Let's.
I knew Zach was
I
gonna get it.
I need to get something out about that play because
Yes.
this is something that bothers me a little bit. He was fighting for that first down in a much needed scenario where they needed a play. Should you not expect your quarterback to be able to make that play without crumbling?
Yeah.
Okay.
You hope
Yeah.
so.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a
It
problem.
didn't even really look like that big
It didn't
of a
even
hit
look
either.
bad. It didn't
It
even
just
look
doesn't
bad.
take much with him, unfortunately.
And that's
Zach.
the thing. Like his neck just crumpled, and it was like I don't even feel like it was the head contact for me. It was the way his neck just folded, and
Yeah.
like
He's
think
not
for
a
me,
durable
that was-
player.
and
Yeah, I
that's
think
the
for
thing.
me that was part of the reason. Like, I remember in the group chat, I was immediately like, "Man, he's got to retire," and part of that was just because like it didn't seem like a very big hit to me, and his reaction was like he reacted similarly to, it wasn't as bad, but he reacted similarly to that play against the Bengals
Well,
a couple
okay,
years
so
back.
I will say the fencing stuff with the curling fingers, you also have to take into consideration when he was going into that hit, he was completely like fists like curled in,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he had to let go. I feel like that was maybe more of a reaction of him letting go of his clenched fist of rushing than
Mhm.
him actually getting into a fencing position, and it got crossed over because he is the face of this issue, and
Yeah.
whether it's rightfully so or not, it is an issue. And I also said in the group chat, it comes a point in time where it gets to a point to where we have to acknowledge how brutal this game actually is, and the only people who can make the decision on whether or not he plays is him and his
Yeah.
family and his wife and his
And medical
people.
staff, obviously, if it's
Well,
bad enough. But
I
that's
mean,
a different
medical
thing.
staff, yeah, but I'm sure. I mean, there's been plenty of players who have been told don't play again, and they've decided to play again, whether
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
better or not. I mean, right off the bat, I can think of Peyton Manning. People are
Yeah.
the famous thing, he shouldn't ride a roller coaster, and the man went and got back in the pocket again. But
Steroids.
Yeah.
but like, it's just so like you should be able to expect your quarterback to make that play. And like at first when I watched him do it, I'm like, okay, go, and then I saw him get to the line and I'm like, slide, and he didn't. And then there. But anybody who is a fool would have believed that Skylar Thompson was a adequate backup for the situation.
And-
I don't know how he beat out Mike White, which I don't know if that's an indictment on McDaniel or on Mike White, because
Mike White.
well, but maybe he was playing okay, and they just have a soft spot for Skylar Thompson, because I feel like the franchise would have a soft spot for the guy they drafted than as opposed to somebody that they brought in randomly.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely get where you're coming from with everything, Zach. I do.
Because based on like their performances, Mike White looked a lot better from what I've seen than everything I've seen from Skylar.
Yeah.
So-
That aside, though, honestly, like, I think my problem is I remember talking with people about this, which might include some of you, honestly. When Tua's contract was a conversation, my issue was that I knew that this offense was built to work with him specifically, the quarterback and his skill set. And we've seen how that plays out without him in there. Now I know like the backups are like not even actually backup level, so it's hard to see like or hard to know how much worse it or like how much better it could possibly be with a better backup. But it's meant for him. Like the offense, he's the rare system quarterback where the system is also him, right? Like the way he plays specifically is why the system works the way it does. If you're gonna pay this guy $50 million a year, you have to have a backup plan that's legitimately like tenable when he doesn't
Yeah.
play because there's a chance he's not going to play sometimes, maybe for long stretches like what we're getting, but there's a very high probability the Dolphins are going to have one win when he comes back, and even if they can rattle off 7 or 8 wins after that, is it going to mean anything in the playoff race in the AFC? I don't know. They might be already out of it before he takes another snap. And if that happens, it's a year wasted when all you would have had to do is probably sneak another win or two out. And as long as he's healthy the rest of the way, you might have had a chance to be in the playoffs again.
I
I
think
just don't see that happening.
I think
And
next
is he
week
going to
is
finish the
telling.
season? Sorry.
That's another question. But yeah.
I think next week is the telling week. If they cannot win the next week, like this week, then
Right. And like I know the
it's the
Patriots aren't
Patriots.
good, but like I think the Dolphins are the
That's
worst team in
false.
football currently as constructed. If without Tua in there, I think they're the worst team in football. Like, and that's just what it comes down
I
to.
do think
Like,
there is a opportunity for growth in a second week of more practice under Huntley. And I
you
think
hope
it
so.
also I also think it comes to
Yeah.
McDaniel making changes and understanding, hey, I have to start leaning on the strengths of the players that I have out there. And I mean,
Yeah.
you see it on the sideline. Hill's pissed. Not that he's doing much on the field. I will say that. Like that lateral play was disgusting. Like show some
Yeah,
effort.
not great.
Show some effort, man. Like you can't just give up. But like I can also understand the frustration of you have one of the most explosive and dangerous receivers in space, and he's doing nothing right now. So you have to start leaning on some of your strengths and
Good dog.
finding a way to
Bless you.
Couldn't
to
mute
get
in
the
time.
players in a position to succeed. Like it's just getting to a point where it's frankly ridiculous.
And I think, and I want to get you guys' thoughts, Jake and Dalton, about this in a second. But I think the problem, went back and watched that game twice, actually, before, because I knew this was going to be a big talking point, the Browns and Dolphins. So I watched both of their most recent games back twice.
I can't, man. You're braver than me. I can't do that.
Well, yeah, yeah. Dalton's like, I'm allergic to this conversation right now.
You just heard Skylar Thompson and started losing it.
Yeah.
No. I think the biggest thing that I noticed is that the Dolphins, once it became clear that Huntley wasn't going to consistently hit passes over the middle, they sent the house against the run. And when you can't run the
Yep.
football and you also can't consistently complete passes beyond the line of scrimmage, guess what? Your offense doesn't work anymore. It's over.
Well,
Like,
and that's the thing is like Achan and Mostert and even Jalen Wright, they're all dangerous. But
Yeah,
if all you're
but if-
going to do is key on the
yeah.
run because your quarterback can't hit any passes, then guess what? Nothing's going to happen.
yeah, it doesn't. I don't care how talented those guys are. Like you
And
can't.
then you're going to set your defense up for the same thing that's happened year after year, where it's an awesome defense.
Yeah,
can
they
hold
held
up so
strong for a
long,
long stretch
but
of this
you
game.
can only hold up for so long before it's exhausting.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is that like you mentioned, Zach, like McDaniel needs to scheme around their best weapons. But the problem is the best part of that offense is getting the ball down the field to Hill and Waddle. And they don't have someone that can do that. Like they just need if they just have I don't think it has to be Tua. I think if you just have a good starting quarterback, that can make those throws consistently. I think you can plug somebody in there and still run the offense. But they don't even have anybody like that. Now they could. I think there's a few options. I mean, because I don't think we can rely on Tua anymore. I just don't think you can consistently rely on him.
They have to
There's
have a better
trade
backup
options.
plan moving forward.
Yeah.
They have to. They have to.
I would be giving the Rams a call about Stafford because I think he would immediately make them a playoff team.
Yeah.
Honestly, if Russell Wilson can still put zip on the ball, I don't think it's a bad fit stylistically. There's options out there.
Here's an interesting one that I just thought about. Do you give Dallas a call and see if they would move on Trey Lance?
I don't
I
know
mean,
if that's an upgrade.
I
I
think-
don't hate that. I don't hate that actually.
You're
I mean,
talking
as
about
as a guy that
getting
you
the
could
ball down
develop
the
into a
field.
backup quarterback, sure.
Yeah.
But this season, I don't think he saves your season at all. I don't.
I do think right now Trey Lance might be a better option than Huntley or Skylar Thompson though. I don't, and it's not saying much.
Based
but
on his I mean, you're basing every single thing on. I mean, outside of somebody who's currently starting, and I don't see how anybody.
No.
I mean, Stafford's having one of the best seasons of his life right now. I get that they have a lot of injuries, but like he's still willing that team to wins. So I don't see how the Rams move on him.
Win.
Well, win, yes,
Win.
it's. But I mean, he's doing insane things at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Wilson, the injury stuff is just so weird. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
they
his
just
calf
use-
has to operate before
Yeah,
we can
I'm-
talk
I'm-
about
I'm-
that. And I
I
don't know if
don't-
that's going to happen.
I
soon,
feel
so.
like his calf
I think it's an
is a
excuse
little
at this
bit
point
better
to
than
let
it
Fields
that's
keep
been said.
playing, and they just don't want to own up to it.
So
Mike Tomlin
all-
doesn't want to make a decision.
I
on
don't
that,
think Russ wants
so-
to admit it either.
Yeah,
that's the thing is
yeah.
all I'll say is that if Wilson, if he is healthy, he's doing a damn good job faking in practice because that dude does not look good in practice. I've seen a lot of clips of him
Yeah.
moving around. It does not look pretty.
Okay,
So
okay.
he's really milking it. It's like it doesn't mean he isn't,
I'm
but
just
he's being a good actor, better than his damn Subway
based on
commercials.
based
for
on
sure.
some of
Yeah.
those based on some of those throws in the preseason. 'Cause,
Unlimited.
look, they were not starting Dak at all in the preseason, and Trey Lance got free reign this preseason.
He got free reign. He got the
he looked
opportunity
pretty
to go
good
a whole
in the
bunch of
beginnings
picks
those-
too.
Well, yeah, but I'll take some downfield shots. to
Right,
get
the
to-
big plays would be
it
different
would be
from
an
what you're getting
open-
with
it would-
Huntley.
It would be an option.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
I don't know how they would feel with it with Dak's history either, because I mean, not that he's been.
He
out
got
all that
Cooper
much,
Rush,
but
right? He's still kicking around, right?
fair.
If you're going backups though, Tanner McKee. Just
Yeah,
saying,
because he's technically the third string quarterback
Yeah.
somehow, despite
which
the
I
fact
don't
that
understand.
Kenny
That
Pickett can't play football as someone who knows that.
he was better than Mariota last year.
That's also true, but I guess it was probably more of a stylistic fit than anything else, though. So, like,
Is
I
Ryan
don't know,
Tannehill still a
it's-
free agent?
w's up?
Is Ryan Tannehill still a free
He
agent?
is.
Yes, he is.
Oh,
And
that's
love that.
actually
oh my god.
Why didn't?
great.
Why,
We have the solution,
as
Zach.
soon as Tua went down, the first thing I thought was
Wait. We want the problem with him was the offensive line, and we want him to return to a worse offensive line.
Hey, don't think about it too
Yeah.
hard, Zach.
Yeah.
We need the storylines. We need
Better
something to
weapons.
talk about.
he does have better
Yeah.
weapons.
That's true.
Just thinking of someone who can get the ball downfield.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's it.
when I
That's
heard
true.
that, I also tweeted out, then we might as well sign Jarvis Landry and get the band back together.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
Bring him back in. Mr. 4740.
I mean,
get him.
as I said, he will be back. Tua will be back. He is going to play again. This
No,
season.
yeah. It's just, again,
He's-
like,
he once the 4 weeks is up, he'll be back. I mean,
But for how long?
he probably would have played this week. I guarantee it. But they only did it for optics. This is.
I mean, if you blow your season for optics, then I kind of hope they lose every game when he comes
I mean,
back. I'll be
I don't
honest with
know. You
Like,
have other head coaches talking about how he should retire. I mean, you have a whole national discussion about it.
I get
It
what you're
looks
saying,
bad.
Zach, but like, if he's
I mean-
cleared, if he was going to be cleared this early, at that point,
mean,
like,
from he made
Sit him the
trip-
rest of
he
the
made
year,
the trip to
dude.
Seattle.
I know, which,
That's not something that you would let somebody who, if they were that concussed, do.
heavily concussed, dude.
Yeah.
What I don't get is why isn't he wearing the Guardian cap? They're allowed. He should have the Guardian cap, and he should have that Wes Welker bubble helmet
Yes.
that
I
he
mean,
had.
Again, after
His
watching
whole
what
head should
happened
be
on
wrapped
that
in
play,
bubble
I
wrap.
don't.
Yeah.
When the neck is the issue too, I don't know how much the Guardian cap.
Get him one of those big ass
hurt those-
one of those,
neck,
like, Peyton
neck
Hillis-
pads.
Yeah,
neck
and he can look
pads.
like what? Who?
Like an old
Who's
school
the last
fullback.
person that wore one? I
Mike
can't
Allstott.
think.
Mike Allstott.
Did
Probably
Cushing not
somebody
have
else.
one?
Oh no, didn't Van Der Esch have one?
Yeah.
Yes,
Van Der Esch
yes.
had
Van Der
one,
Esch
yeah.
wore one. Yeah.
I was gonna say I can't believe Cushing didn't have one. I definitely thought he did.
No, he liked his helmet off more than on.
I mean,
usually,
yeah.
honestly. No, but no. Again, like my thing with the Dolphins is I'm just like, if Tua comes back healthy and he's 100% ready to go, does not miss any more time. The offense was already still not what it was
Yeah.
last year and hadn't been for a while, and even if they can reel off, like I said, 7 or 8 wins down the stretch with him, that might not be enough in the AFC.
Yep.
It just might not be. And like, so your season's probably blown if they don't win one of these next 2 games at least.
Yeah,
And
10
you
wins
might need to
is
win both.
maybe
Is the
for the
is the
playoffs.
AFC that great this year though? I mean,
I just do you think 9 wins get you in this year?
I don't think it necessarily is. It's definitely not a lock to get in, but
That-
I do.
right,
I
that's
don't
my
think
point,
9
yeah.
wins necessarily put you out of the race for like
Well,
7 seed.
you'll be
'Cause,
in the race
there's
to
a
the
lot
end,
of
but-
really average teams, at least through 4 games in the
Yeah.
AFC.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 3 2-2 teams in the AFC West. You've got,
The AFC mid, yeah.
I mean,
You
the
got the 1 and
Colts.
3 Bengals.
The Colts are super hit or miss right now.
Yes.
The Jaguars are
Titans-
completely
The
out of
Titans and
it.
Jaguars are like, I just love the ever escalating pictures of Will Levis just in serious moments of denial of like, this can't be happening right now. I think the AFC North is weird because I feel like the Ravens are the best team.
We'll be talking about them here shortly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But like, we're going to talk about Cleveland here in a second. The Bengals are doing Bengals things. I don't know how to feel about them though, because they're looking very rough as well. And then I don't think you can feel confident about anybody in the AFC East outside of Buffalo. So I think
Yeah.
Jake might have a point here.
There's
I get that, but like my point is that you'd have to reel off 7 or 8 wins with him at quarterback down the stretch, and also probably get lucky to get in. Like realistically,
yeah, it's not likely. They did do that a couple of years ago, I think.
They did.
Or I think they
I mean,
might have missed it, but
They-
they,
that-
pretty
that
sure
got
they
close.
won like 8 games in a row.
Pretty
But
sure
that,
they
I mean,
did
it's probably not happening
last
again
year.
either way. But
I mean,
I just don't know if
The
2
Steelers are
more
winning
losses
10 games.
necessarily.
I believe
the
so.
Jets are probably going to win at least 9. At least 1 or 2 of those AFC West teams are probably going to win at least 9.
It's gonna be a crowded field. At the
It's
end.
going to be 9 wins is a maybe. I think 10 is like you probably get in, but it's going to be tricky. Because I think that the North and the East are both getting a team in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just tough for the Dolphins, and I think there's not much you can really do. It's aside from hoping McDaniel can come up with something to get this offense
yeah,
to
and I
work.
think that's the other thing is this is strayed a little bit from being a Shanahan offense. It's not a Shanahan offense anymore.
It's not in a
McDaniel
lot of
offense.
ways. You're right. Yeah, which is
Um,
fine, but it also like
And
you lose some of
I
the foolproof elements of that offense when you do this stuff.
I think it goes to the quality of the offensive line play and this franchise's refusal to invest any sort of capital into the offensive line. I mean, what did they drafted Patrick Paul this year? I think that was the most of an addition that was made.
Good old PP.
Yeah. So, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
Should we jump to the Browns?
yeah, I want to jump into the Browns here because they are in
Woof.
a
Woof.
even more an enviable position. The sad part is Deshaun Watson probably had his best game as a Brown, in my opinion, based on tape last week, and it still didn't matter because his team is a giant fuck up all the time.
He had the funniest interception.
Yeah, which again, it's like he actually made a great throw over the middle to Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And he's just like, whoa. Like, just
What
throws it up
happened to
in the-
Amari Cooper, by the way?
I think he legitimately doesn't want to play for that team. I
Yeah,
really
He,
think that's
yeah,
part
he
of it.
just looks like he is not having
I
fun.
think he's phoning it in just enough where it's a problem for them that they're going to be like, we should get rid of this guy.
Well,
I
It
really
feels
think
like-
there's a part
It
of
feels
that.
like he had a really bad start to the season, and at this point, he's just like, "What's the point?"
Yeah.
You know?
well, I mean,
He's
also I would be pissed if I was Amari Cooper too. He finally
Yeah.
got it together in week 4. Like he probably gave up after watching that's 6 the 13th or 15th game of Deshaun Watson being ass, and he was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm over this. And what's up with Watson? Like it's I mean, one performance, I mean, that was good, but like homie's got to like pull it together. Like you're worth way too much money.
Yeah, he has to. And the thing is, if he doesn't play like that all the time, that Browns team is not good enough for them to win anything.
The run game's a mess. The pass protection, because of all the injuries, is a mess. He's holding on to the
Yeah.
ball with that pressure, knowing it's coming a lot of the time. Again, he was better at escaping it in this past game. But if you can't, I'm sorry to you two. For what I'm about to say. If you can't beat the Raiders
especially
Pl-
that Raiders team.
that Raiders
a
team
week after Andy Dalton torched
exactly.
that defense.
Like if you can't beat that Raiders team while playing your best game that you've played probably in a Browns uniform, just from an individual standpoint, you are so beyond cooked.
with no Max Crosby too.
Exactly. Like you were beyond cooked.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
over.
And I do
Like-
think, like, if Deshaun Watson were on a better team, I think we'd be looking at him differently.
He
To a
has
certain
that
degree.
If
confidence.
you know what I mean, like playing like the way he did towards the end of that game, and I mean he's shown flashes here and there. Otherwise, he's just kind of been an average quarterback at best.
Yeah, he
But-
just doesn't have the confidence for 60 minutes. It's
Here's a solution for both of these problems. Browns kind of need to blow things up at this point, probably.
Oh no.
Trade
no.
Deshaun to Miami.
I can't do it. I can't do
He
it.
would love it down
We
there.
can spend $100 million on a bad quarterback
kidding me?
and a
Brian
quarterback
Flores
that
is
You
out
have
doesn't
there.
way too
play.
much fun in Miami.
Brian
Way too
Flores
much
isn't
fun.
there anymore. They wouldn't do that.
Listen, that happening aside, right? If you're the Browns, I think the only thing you can do at this point is hope that you get more of that version of Deshaun Watson that you got this week, and that your team doesn't fall apart around it. That's really all you can hope
Yeah.
for, because the defense is still good, but not to the level they were last year so far, I don't think. I think, again, the receiver play has been, outside of when Cooper has weird lapses, has been fine. The offensive line is just untenable. It just, you can't play good football with that offensive line. You have to hope that some of these injuries clear up and you can get back healthy. But they're similar to the Dolphins, where, like, I don't know if things are going to get better soon enough for it to matter for them this year. I
Yeah,
really
no.
think that
No,
we could see this by the middle of the season be a situation where they simply just aren't in it, and it's another lost season for them, right?
I
Like
mean-
last year it could have been, but they turned it around. I don't think they can do it again this year with the
No,
way
and
this
I don't
is.
think the wide receivers really are good enough, to be honest.
think they're
If Amari
fine,
Cooper is not
but-
playing well, I mean,
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy is literally just a guy.
He's been better for them, I think, than he was with the Broncos, but it's still not
Yeah,
consistent.
not a first round pick.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
when
Moore's
you're asked
fine.
getting thrown to.
Yeah, but Watson, man, just he can't. The thing that I've noticed with him the most is the pocket presence is completely deteriorated, and his accuracy just isn't NFL caliber a lot of games.
No.
It's like legitimately not like starting caliber in the NFL a lot of games that he's played for this team. And it's not that he was like this precision passer in his days with Houston. He was much more of that playmaker type mostly. But this is like not, you can't play quarterback like this and expect to win games very often most of the time.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, they have a week 10 bye. Their next 5 games before that are against the Commanders, Eagles, Bengals, Ravens, and Chargers. So
Maybe
I
2
don't
and
know
3.
if they
I mean-
have more than 2 wins.
Right,
by the
couple
time they hit their
games
bye
in there
week.
against defenses that you should be able to attack, but like, I don't know. It's really, again, it's hard to say with that team, right? Like it really is. So I would say pray for Browns fans, but I cannot say that contractually. So I will not as a Steelers fan. But somehow I feel bad for the Browns a little bit, simply because like whenever they were quarterbacked by Mayfield and like they were kind of figuring it out, because of how bad they were, I couldn't really be mad about it. I really couldn't. I was just like, you know what, good for you guys. And now it's like I don't want them to succeed because I hate their quarterback, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. But also, it's like it's just depressing. Yeah, legitimately depressing. The
It's
situation.
depressing considering the fact that Mayfield is playing great.
Yeah, and like
Tampa
would
Bay
he
as
have
well.
become this version of himself there? No, I don't think so. But like, it's
Yeah.
still, even the version of him that was healthy when he was there is still
He had to-
significantly
He had, to
better.
bring it back, he had to bring things back to football in Tampa. Come on now.
Yeah, bring things back. to
Bring the fun back.
bring the fun, bring the fun back. No, but yeah, the Browns, and it's just a mess for them. And speaking of the AFC North, this is our next topic I want to jump into, because I think going into the season, most people, if you ask them what the best division in the NFL is, one of their answer is going to be one of the North divisions, either obviously the NFC or AFC North. Most people, right? Obviously, some people might have felt differently, but that was kind of the consensus going in, that those divisions had the most top to bottom consistent talent across the league. NFC North is holding up their end of the bargain through 4 games. right? Vikings 4-0, which big surprise. We'll talk about them soon. Packers are kind of in this weird position where when Jordan Love has played quarterback, they've lost, and when Malik Willis has played quarterback, they've won. I expect that to kind of even out. Bears have somehow trudged their way to 2-2. Like, Lions are the Lions, obviously. Like, that division is held firm. AFC North, however, Steelers 3-1 leading the division. Would not have necessarily guessed that, even as a Steelers fan. Ravens starting to figure it out, especially this past week against the Bills. But the Browns we just talked about, and the Bengals, man, that's really the one thing. Like, the top team, the teams that were expected to be the 1, 2, and 3 preseason odds wise, they always put the Steelers at fourth recently because they just assume eventually that it'll matter that we're not good, but it doesn't matter ever for whatever reason. But those teams have not performed to their standard that we expected from them, especially the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bengals' problem is I think Joe Burrow has kind of tricked us into thinking that team's a lot better than it is at this point. And like, yeah, they were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but that defense is not the same as it was when they made that Super Bowl run. I mean, when you really look at that roster, you've got a great quarterback in Joe Burrow. You've got some good weapons catching the ball. Not a whole lot at running back, an okay-ish offensive line, and a couple names on defense, but that's just about it. That's it. It's really not a great roster. It's not, outside of a handful of guys, it's not really a contender type of roster. It's a fringe playoff roster at best.
They're also dealing with a lot of injuries on defense.
Yep.
Yeah.
That does not help.
And that's ultimately my problem with that team is I legitimately don't know against most good offenses like they're going to face in this division often, especially the Ravens, and even the Steelers are starting to pick things up in the passing game with Fields. Like, can you compete on offense against an offense that gets to play your defense, right? Like, that's just kind of what their issue is right now. It's not that Burrow isn't playing well. It's not that even the run game, although the backs are not super inspiring, it's good enough, I think.
Yeah.
You just can't keep pace with a lot of teams that are able to put up points. And I don't know how much better that gets between now and the end of the season, right? Because a lot of these guys are either unproven or banged up. Like, Hendrickson is the only pass rusher on that team worth a damn right now.
Yeah.
The interior's a mess. The secondary is so hit or miss. Like, Cam Taylor-Britt 1 week is great. 1 week is getting burned like 3 times over the top. Like, it's just a mess right now. They're really, really missing Jesse Bates. I feel like they wish they paid him right now. The receivers, like, we know how good they can be, but you haven't paid either one of them. So, like, what is that going to be in a year from now? Like, there's just a lot of question marks surrounding this team, and I don't think it should be as bad as it is, but it has been, right? And until they prove that they can play consistently good on both sides of the ball, they're probably not going to be a threat to win this division or maybe even make the playoffs, depending on how things break. So it's just been strange for them in particular.
Yeah, they're not a team that I think needs a rebuild necessarily, but they need a big retooling.
Yeah, they need to reassess their talent acquisition on defense in particular.
Situation.
Yeah, for sure. Any thoughts you want to throw in there, Jake? Because I know you haven't said much on this one.
Yeah, I just think, in years past with Cincinnati, they've started slow, but they found a way
slow. Yeah.
to claw their way back into playoff contention. I don't think they're able to do that this year. They just don't.
Yeah, it's tough.
With the holdout situations for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they both look like they've had somewhat slow starts to the season. The defense is just bad. They got the Ravens this week. I think there's a very realistic chance they start 1-4, and I just don't know if their defense is good enough to get them back. They really feel like a 8-9, 9-8 team.
This feels a lot like, not quite as extreme, but like the mid 2010 Saints, where like the offense can drop 40 on people on a good week, but the defense is probably going to give up 41. Like it just kind of feels like that type of team where like they could go on a little bit of a run if the defense has a couple good games in a row, but like you're probably not getting 4 or 5 games in a row of consistent defense out of this team. You just probably aren't.
Yeah. I don't. I don't know. This doesn't feel like one of those years where I really thought they were gonna after they went 0-2. And it sucks because they should have beaten the Chiefs if they don't have that stupid pass interference penalty at the end.
I mean, there was a lot of calls in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
it
it's
just
not great.
gave that one away. They should have beat the Commanders at home, but they just could not. They let Jaden Daniels play one of the best games I've seen a quarterback.
Yeah,
play
again, the
this in
defense
decade.
just doesn't exist right
And
now
then
for them.
They just gave up 24 points to the Panthers, who I don't think I still don't think their offense is that good. The Raiders made them look really good, but that's the Raiders.
It's just competent now, right? Which that's all you have to be to put up 20 something points on this team, right?
Yeah.
And the offense is probably gonna be able to get you 20 something too most of the time, but not every week. It's just not that consistent to me, especially with the receiver situation being kind of weird depending on the week, feels like. So again, the Bengals are the team definitely that are the most disappointing because the Browns, we knew this could happen with the Browns, right? Because the talent on the roster overall, especially defensively, gives you hope that they could be a consistent team. But Deshaun Watson would have to play consistent. He's not. Receiving group would have to play above their head.
Decimation of their offensive line is
again that also plays into it, right? Where injuries happen and that team falls apart.
They're one of the teams that have invested in the trenches heavily. They have a great unit over there, but
when they're healthy,
none of them can play.
Exactly. So, and then the Ravens, they're sitting pretty now, kind of because they've they had to play the Chiefs week 1, tough. Then you lose an insane game to the Raiders, which they always do that once a year, where they lose a stupid game to somebody they're beating by 20 points.
And they're slow starters in general.
They are, yeah. You also give up almost a lead to the Cowboys, which whatever. But then you go and absolutely decimate the Bills, right? So it's okay, we kind of know what they are about. We know what they can be. So that I think they're going to be ultimately fine. And then you have my Steelers here sitting at 3-1. Almost came back against the Colts despite a horrendous, a comedy of errors. Every way you can lose a game, they did it.
Funniest first half.
Yeah, one of the stupidest sequences of events of all time, and they still almost come back. I still am not 100% sure how to feel about them, despite obviously knowing a lot about them. I like to think that Fields is going to be able to continue to play at a level he's playing at and improve over time as well and continue to get better. But you never know. It's hard to say. And the defense needs to get healthier because Alex Highsmith's being out as much as I love Nick Herbig. Not a full-time edge rusher at this point in his career, I don't think. I think he's better as that fire breather off the edge. There's just a lot of questions with them still, too. Can the offense consistently score 20, 24, 27 points when they need to? Can the defense play against good offenses and not get out-coached? They have their own issues, but they're kind of sitting pretty with the way that their schedule lines up until they hit the hard part of their schedule, the back half.
They'll win 10 games.
I personally feel like the Ravens are the best team in the AFC right now.
And again, I don't really think that's that big of a stretch to say, considering what they saw them do.
The past 2 weeks, outside of dropping or letting the Cowboys score all those points,
which they do that though. That's what they do.
They're really close to being 4-0.
They could relocate.
They're realistically a couple inches from being, at least a chance of being
3-1
in overtime and 3-1. I won't say that they would have won because they probably would have gone for 2 on that and pissed me off because they should have just taken the extra point.
Good old Harbaugh and his decisions. Yeah.
But I mean, just most consistently on both sides of the ball, they know what makes their offense go, and it's the run game. And they went out and got probably the best option for their run game, which was Derrick Henry. And the two of them, we talk about quarterbacks and all this stuff all the time, other players, whatever. To see Derrick Henry doing what he is doing at the position that he is for the style of running back that he is, it's unheard of. It is absolutely insane, and kudos to him. I was listening to Bomani's podcast, and he had Mina Kimes on this week as a guest on Wednesday, and she was talking about how we're watching all of this stuff die off with the passing game, and man, wouldn't it be nice for the league to rally around Derrick Henry to now become the new face of the push of offense? Because the Ravens, I would say, are some of the more consistent offensive teams, and when they can rush the ball, they don't even need Mark Andrews or Zay Flowers or them to really do much. They're fine. And the defense, I mean, they have a knack of being able to, no matter who is on that roster, like they just have their cornerstones and they're gonna be fine. Um, so I mean, I think Kansas City might get better as the season goes on. They have some major questions on offense
I
that
think
they
they
have
do
to
still have
answer.
to add a receiver at some point.
I don't know who they add. I don't.
But I think I really think they have to, with
I
knowing
mean, they
that,
have to, but
like, yeah.
I just don't see it feasible. There's a lot of teams that need to add a receiver or add a weapon, and it's going to
Yeah.
be interesting to see what happens. But I don't see any team as consistent going down the stretch as Baltimore looks right now.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
understandable. I think the thing with Henry too, and I think that just to talk about him for a second, the thing that's so weird with him is like it's not that he isn't a power runner, because he is, because of his size, obviously. But what makes him special, as we all know, is his that gear in the open field to run away from players that are half his size, and
Yeah,
he can still do that all after all these carries, after the age that he's at.
and doing that until like not eating until 5 p.m. That
Yeah,
was
he's a.
insane.
It's again.
I
He's a freak.
He's a
He's a true
machine.
freak. Like he is a freak among freaks at his position, really
I
in
would be
the
so
sport.
angry if I went to work every day and I'm like, I'm not eating until 5 p.m. I'm not eating a
He needs
single
that
hour
anger
until
to
5 p.m.
fuel him, though, Zach.
Exactly.
No.
It's crazy.
Do just before we move on to our next topic here, though. So quick side question here. Do we think that, at least for the foreseeable future, that Derrick Henry is the last player to reach 10,000 rushing yards?
Yes. Absolutely.
Who's on that list? I don't.
Second on the list active is Zeke with under 9,000. I don't think he gets there. I
No.
think he peters
He's
out.
close. I think he'll be close. Depends on what he does with Dallas and
And
what
if he
Dallas
plays
tries to
longer
do.
than this year, I think is a big thing. I think after that,
Yeah.
you're looking at like in the 7,000s, like Christian's at 6,000 something. I just don't
Well,
see
I
him.
no. He's. I mean,
I
when you're
don't see him
talking about
playing long
going,
enough to do
yeah.
that.
2 weeks or like earlier this year, probably would have said, yeah, he definitely gets there. But
Right.
now,
Now,
I
if he
don't
doesn't
know.
play
Now, if you're
soon,
going to
Yeah.
Germany for your Achilles tendons, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how many more yards you're
Yeah.
getting there, but
yeah. And I just think the era of running backs getting to just pound out yards when they're 30 plus just doesn't happen anymore. Like they can continue to be a part of a backfield, but you're not going to get 250 carries a year as a 30-year-old running back unless you're special like Henry, right? And I just don't know how often teams are going to be willing to let guys do that. So that's why I'm kind of wondering, like, can a player, unless they have an unbelievable first like 5 years in the league, right? Which it could happen. I feel like it's gonna be hard to get to 10,000
I'm
nowadays.
curious to see. I think the only two other guys that have a shot at it right now are probably Jacobs and Saquon.
Right, and I could see either one of them
I could see
potentially doing
Saquon
that.
definitely doing it.
Yeah,
If
with the Eagles team that he's like, that makes sense too. But like, even him, like, he's had a lot of injuries. Like, if he's healthy for the next 3 or 4 years, then he could probably do it. But can
oh
you
man,
guarantee
and then when
that?
you
Like,
wait, when you look at this and you realize that Adrian Peterson only barely hit 10,000 yards, holy
that's
man,
my
this
point.
is
It's not
okay.
easy to do.
Okay,
It never
never
was really
mind.
easy to do, but
Yeah,
nowadays, especially, just with the
yeah.
way that it works for
The
guys,
drop
like,
off is quick.
I think it's impressive that
Yeah.
Ricky hit it. That's amazing. Ricky Williams
oh
with
yeah,
ten
Ricky
thousand
Williams,
yards.
just
Holy
barely
cow,
too.
10,009, baby.
Yeah,
Let's go.
so yeah, but no, it's just, again, it's tough. Like, it is. I just thought that was an interesting thing to think about, because I just don't know if we see it
That
again
is
for a long
very
time.
interesting, and
So
and it's not even like, I mean, it's a very recent change.
yeah,
Like in
it
the
is
course of NFL history, it's a very recent change.
for sure.
Yeah.
But our next point we wanted to go into, and I think the Buccaneers I'm going to keep in this list, because I think that outside of like JT, for those, you know, we weren't really sure what to do with the Buccaneers in the preseason, because you lose Canales as a play caller. Are you sure that Baker's going to repeat his success, the whole 9 years? There's questions about that team for sure. Are the Commanders, Vikings, and Buccaneers kind of, I would say, especially the Commanders and Vikings, but throw the Buccaneers in there because they could have easily been 4-1 right now, with last night's, Thursday night's game. Are the Commanders, Vikings, Buccaneers for real? Like, especially those first two, because if you would have told me that the Commanders would be 3-1 through the first 4 games, and that Jane Daniels would break the completion percentage record for the first 4 games of a season, like, not as a rookie, but for the season in the NFL period through the first 4 games, I would have told you you're on crack. So
Well,
I think all three are for real.
we knew that
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels was the most pro-ready quarterback and ready to start week 1. Like that was a general consensus, correct?
I mean, I
Yeah.
would have still had Williams as more prepared to play
Really?
personally, but I thought his floor was so high with his
Yeah.
playmaking ability, but like he also showed a lot from the pocket that people didn't give him credit for. But Daniels was definitely a player that I knew could play right away, so I'm not going to take that away from him.
As
It was more
as
so you have to remember too, like Kingsbury hire was questionable for a lot of people. And I still think there's certain things that I don't love about what he's doing, but it's working for what Daniels is doing well with right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, we also have to take in consideration that they've played who they absolutely got dog walked by. Um, the Giants, the Bengals, and the Cardinals. The Bengals and Cardinals both have suspect defenses, and the Giants are the Giants.
Correct.
Now, Jaden Daniels has looked amazing in the last couple of games,
Yes.
but I think this week will be a little interesting. I think I just don't want I don't want to take away from Commanders fans right now, but I also don't want to give in because I've seen this story before. Um, growing up in the area. So there's a lot of things to love, and like we all knew that Terry McLaurin was an absolute dog, but he didn't have anybody throwing to him. And kudos to him for sticking it out as long as he have and waiting for Jaden Daniels. Um, I more so would extend my like gratitude out to Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen because man, how long have they been waiting for this shit? Because like just watching them on the field, getting in the backfield, and then they're just like, "Let's go, man! Let's do this!" It's so great to see, but I'm low key just waiting for the floor to fall out because that offensive line is not the greatest, and
Defense.
They don't have a corner who's worth a damn.
Yeah, the
that and
defense
then
is
also,
bad.
I mean, let's be honest. How established are Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey? Like those are your wide receivers 2 and 3. Like it's the Terry
Yeah.
McLaurin show, which awesome.
Hey,
It's
put some
long
respect
overdue.
on Diami Brown's name.
I will never
No.
understand their decision this offseason to trade Jahan Dotson. That made no
I-
sense. He was
That
such a
makes
good
zero
fit.
sense. Absolutely not. He did great last year, and it sucked. That
Well, he
had
was
some
pretty
injuries.
horrendous last year, but I don't know how much it was to do
Oh,
with
he had
him
some
and more to
flashes though.
do
He had
with
some flashes though. Like there was some times where
the
you could see
team.
what was going to happen, but they also had no quarterback. Now
Yeah,
you have a
exactly.
quarterback, and it's like, oh man, like why would you just ship that out of there? That doesn't make any
For
sense.
nothing.
For nothing. Like
Yeah, it was. I think it truly was like the team and him just didn't want to continue
Yeah,
this
there was
relationship.
something.
Which that's
internal.
fine if that's
I-
ultimately what it's about. I don't think he's so great that it's like going to be disastrous or anything, but
I
it
had
still
seen
would have liked to have him.
things
but
on
I did.
Twitter. I don't really know how valid it is, but that basically he wasn't doing very well in camp, which I
That I
think
did hear.
probably would
So
be
it's
part
like,
of it.
yeah.
But
yeah.
again, no, I don't. I do agree. I think it may, especially with a rookie quarterback. I think.
I mean,
it
they
makes a bit
also
more sense
didn't
to keep him.
have Noah Brown in camp. They signed him before
Yeah,
the
after he
season
was
started.
yeah, because he
Yeah.
was yeah. I think so. The thing I'll say with like the strength of schedule defensively, obviously not so great. However, we are talking about historically good numbers to start
Oh
a
yeah.
season for a rookie, and I think that the film checks out, especially when you talk about like the biggest concern I had with him. And I think Dalton, you also had concerns about him with this. Is could he attack the middle of the field with any amount of success at the NFL
Well,
level?
yeah.
He didn't show that at LSU at all to me. Like there's very little evidence on film of him doing that. And it may have been, and it probably was more so now that we've seen him do it at the NFL level pretty well. Probably was about the scheme and what they're asking him to do, but still, like you didn't see it. So that was a big part of playing quarterback successfully in the NFL is can you at least attack that part of the field sometimes? He's done that, and he's done everything else he was good at in college at the NFL level too. I mean, look at the deep balls he's been able to put on film, like it's
Mhm.
insane. All the things that were working for him at the college level are working for him at the NFL level. I still think the biggest question is going to be can he continue to at least protect himself well enough to not
Yeah.
end up like someone else who was a dynamic dual threat quarterback
Yeah.
that played for that team.
Well,
I will not even
also
say his name because I
I
don't want to
don't
invoke that.
I also don't think that if he were to get an injury this regime and like the heads of this franchise now would do the stupid thing of putting him back in
Yeah.
that season.
I
Right,
agree with
for
that.
sure, for
We
sure.
can say all we want about the original injury to RG3 and like yeah, he should have protected himself more. But the real doom there was them putting him back in that season and setting himself up to get re-injured and just completely
Right.
shred that knee to take it to shreds.
Especially on that
That was
field.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was absolute malpractice by the head coaching staff or by the coaching staff, by the front office, by everybody, and like it was a shame to watch that happen. Um, as far as the question that we're answering right now, I would say Jaden Daniels absolutely 100% for real. I'm not 100% sold on the Commanders yet.
And I think that's
Yeah.
fair because the defense could totally get them into some bad situations to the point where they can't win enough games. But I do like this is a team I could see being a 9-10 win team by the end of the year if they can at least do something defensively at some point to kind of help this offense.
Now I will say
It,
I think
yeah.
last week is a bit
Yeah, that was very
well, I think
yeah.
it's a statement in their defense because I
Yeah.
was very high on the Cardinals. I was gonna say when you were
Especially
talking
offensively. I
when you
mean,
were
we knew the
talking about
defense was nothing.
I mean, they're all right. I mean, they've had some pretty impressive performances this season, I would say so far. But I was going to say when you're talking about you're talking about the best conferences, it's the NFC West, man. It's all four. I mean, outside of injuries for the Rams, they all four look like incredible teams. And I thought that the Cardinals were just going to give the Commanders so many issues, and they shut them down immediately.
Yeah.
That was impressive to see.
That was a promising sign
But
for sure.
I don't know how often they can repeat that, especially in the games of like you're playing against NFC or NFC East opponents. Can you shut down your rivals? That's always been their kryptonite. Is
Mhm.
can they shut down their rivals? And it's always been a no.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
think the Commanders, I think, are a year away. I think like
Yeah.
Still,
eight-
generally speaking,
probably
yeah.
8 wins. You know, maybe they get to 9 and are in that wild card discussion. But I think from being like a team where you like legitimately wonder what they can do, I think they're a year away from that. They need to
Yeah.
make a couple big splashes in free agency in the draft. Just add a little more talent to that roster.
Yeah.
If you can upgrade the tackle position a little bit and get some players on defense that are truly starting caliber, you could very easily make a run at the division. I think as early as next year.
Yeah,
do.
I agree.
With the way the other teams are trending, I think that's totally within
I
reason.
agree.
And it's ironic because I feel the exact opposite about the Vikings.
Interesting. I think so. My thing with the Vikings, I'll just say this right now. Sam Darnold, as well as he's playing, he's still Sam Darnold in the sense that
Yes.
he's going to give you some
Yes.
boneheadedness, right?
I
He's not 100% fixed. He's not like, oh, all of a sudden, like, truly like a top, like, 5 quarterback, like he's playing statistically, right? But the coaching, to me, offensively and defensively, as a unit, is the best in the NFL this year by a pretty comfortable margin. And especially defensively, what Brian Flores is doing. I know Zach. I don't even invoke his
oh that was
name.
no that was a good
No,
ooh, that was a
no, I'm
good
just
ooh.
saying, like, even invoke his
It's
name for
well,
some people.
I just, like we brought up Kingsbury earlier, Flores. There's just some guys, they're coordinators. They're
Yeah, they're
not head
coordinators.
coaches, and that's
Yeah,
the extent. And that's not an indictment on them.
it
You
isn't.
do
No.
what you do when you can focus entirely on one side of the
Yeah.
ball. It's hard to be a head coach. I think we are getting to the point that maybe McDaniel might be in a bit over in his head, and he might just be better suited off as an offensive coordinator as opposed to a head coach. But that's a completely
That's
different discussion.
possible. Yeah, that's
But
possible.
like no, Brian Flores is going off right now, and it's
Yeah.
incredible. Like somebody deserved to give him another chance because the way that things ended in Miami were just downright weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as far as
that
feeling
defense looks great.
as far as feeling the opposite about the Vikings as I feel about the Commanders, as you just said, Shane, Sam Darnold. Yes, he threw for 4 touchdown passes. He also did not cross 200 yards.
There's
Like that's
there's still turnover worthy plays littered in his
exactly,
tape.
and
It's
I
but it's
think
working because of how great the coaching is and the
that,
weapons.
and I think
It
the
works.
Vikings roster also is in such a better position overall that
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if Sam Darnold puts you into a couple of those boneheaded like positions, they're still going to pull it out and win. Like Justin Jefferson is the the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. Like there is no question. The things he does on the field are absolutely insane. Jordan Addison, when he is on the field with him, like you have like Jefferson commands so much field that he is just running out there butt naked, and like
Yeah.
one of them is
Need to
going to
keep
be
him in
open.
the sidecar, instead
TJ
of the main driver of the.
TJ Hawkinson is going to be coming back here soon.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones still has plenty left in the tank.
He does have juice still.
And
you
then
can tell.
you throw in Kevin O'Connell putting off some of the best offensive play calling in the NFL right now, and the defense just running on all cylinders. Like, I don't care if you have Sam Darnold. You probably would have had JJ McCarthy if he hadn't gotten hurt, and it probably would have been in the same position.
Yeah, I think Minnesota wins the NFC North this year.
Yeah.
I mean their defense is just dominant. And the thing about like Sam Darnold right now, he leads the NFL in passer rating at 118.9. He leads the league in passing touchdowns. He leads the league in air yards per attempt, and those things are going to regress a bit, I think, as the year goes on. I don't think it's reasonable to expect him to continue to play at that level, but that regression doesn't feel so bad to me when you have Justin Jefferson and you have a great play caller and you have Aaron Jones, who is looking just as good as he did in Green Bay. So I think all of those things combined, it's a little different than, the Commanders or the Bengals, because they have great offenses, but they don't have the defense to match it. I think, this Vikings team could win the division and the defense could end up being their strong suit. And I do think Sam Darnold has turned a corner just in watching him play. He looks like he's playing more confident, and he looks like he just feels more comfortable. But even if he does regress a bit, he has a very good situation around him. He's got a running back that can be consistent. He's got the best receiver in the league, and he's got a great play caller. So I think overall, and they're 4-0 right now. I mean,
Yeah, they've kind of given themselves a little bit of a cushion, especially as a playoff team, let alone a potential division winner. Again, Flores just has the ability to, right now, with the way his defense is playing, if Darnold gets them in a bad spot, right, or the offense isn't clicking, he can literally just basically press the nuke button and get a free sack pretty much whenever he wants. It feels like it's like you look at the Packers game.
Andrew Van Ginkel.
Yeah, but you look at the Packers game, they let up points in that second half because the Packers were just kind of bombing it constantly. But how many plays did they make on the ball, and how many times did they force Love to give the ball away on a bad pass because he was getting hit as he was getting thrown? The pressure was just constant. It felt like for the most part, and the couple times it wasn't there that they got some big plays. But Packers offensive line is pretty good unit. You're not going to always face units that can handle that pressure very often, and they couldn't really. They had a couple nice runs in the game, but they couldn't stick with it because the offense was playing well opposite of them, so they couldn't stick with the run. The odds of them having many games where both sides of the ball are struggling with this coaching staff they have going on right now, I just don't think it's going to happen very much.
Yeah, depending on what the Packers or Lions do, I think they have a shot at the division. At worst, I think they're like an 11 or 12 win wildcard team. And I think they're comfortably a playoff team. I think that's for sure with the Vikings. I do think they're probably getting knocked out in the second round of the playoffs because Sam Darnold will do Sam Darnold things.
Yeah, I'm not expecting them to be true Super Bowl contenders, even if they have a great rest of the season, just because I do think there's enough vulnerabilities in that team where someone will eventually be able to take advantage of that.
They could spoil somebody's year
for sure. They could. Yeah, absolutely.
So. Because it's not even like we're talking about the Vikings from a couple years ago where they were hovering at what was it, minus 20?
Yeah, 13 and 4 or whatever with a negative point differential on those.
They've got one of the higher point differentials in the league right now. So
yeah, I still remember every week coming on the show, Zach, and being like, frauds every week. Is very funny. Not the same setup this year.
No, completely different.
Yeah. So I did want to, before we get into our game picks here in a second, because I want to jump into that. A couple things that we wanted to talk about, probably won't have time to get too deep into, but kind of just quick around the horn, not to steal that show name, but
hey, it's
quick around the horn on these topics here, just kind of get you guys' thoughts on it. Both of these are from Dalton. You throw those in here for us. I'll start with the first one. Are the Colts better off with Joe Flacco? So as someone who just watched Joe Flacco tear their defense apart kind of a little bit, I think if your goal is purely to try to give your team the best chance of succeeding offensively every game, and I use the word every game for a reason, I do think most times a quarterback, even one that is a little bit erratic at times because of his age and his play style, Flacco would give them a better chance to consistently move the football. I think the question for the Colts in that case is, does that matter to you enough, obviously, to not play the quarterback that you drafted fourth overall
Yeah.
and let him work it out? Obviously, they're going to play him when he's healthy and work it out. If your goal is simply to win every game that you can this year, yeah, probably Flacco would be a better option to do that. That's kind of my thought process on that. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I don't know. Joe Flacco these last 2 years has just turned into like just it's just been such an interesting storyline to watch. I This is a really tough one because I kind of feel the same way as you, where you kind of have to play Richardson. You know,
Yeah, I think you
if
do.
you're at the
Yeah.
point where you're not playing him for like a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, then we
Not
have
great.
serious issues.
Not good, Bob.
But I don't know. I don't. I guess I would probably say they're still better off with Richardson. I think,
Okay.
but um, that's also counting on the fact that I think he'll be able to figure some things out soon.
Right.
You know, he
You hope
hasn't
so.
looked great, and there are some things to be worried about. But I don't know. You could say we said this throughout the whole draft process and all of the offseason that the potential is always there with him, but he's just got to put it together.
Yeah.
And I still think he will. So I would say um, for the season they're probably better off with Richardson, but I definitely understand the argument of like on a game to game basis, Flacco probably gives you a better chance to win.
All right. What do you think, Zach?
I mean, again, I will echo y'all's sentiment. It would be quite damning to start Flacco on your a fourth overall pick investment. Um, However, I think that there was an assumption when you drafted Richardson that the floor could be pretty low at times and
Yeah.
that he was still a work in progress. There's been some flashes, but again, I think it depends on the overall. Well, I mean, we say it depends on the overall goal of the season, and the overall goal of the season should be to win every game
Should be.
possible.
Should be.
Um,
But
but I mean, it gets tricky. And I mean, there were times before he got hurt last season, he was looking better and better with every game. It's just how long of a leash do you afford Richardson before you're like, yo, fam, every time you go out and he goes in, we do a lot better. What's the deal? Um, so
Yeah.
it's a really tough decision because like again, like I of all people, I would not expect Jim Irsay to take his comeuppance on his fourth overall draft pick and start Joe Flacco long term.
Yeah.
Like that's where I find a hard time believing that.
yeah, let's send it over to Dalton.
Yeah.
You
So,
presented this to us.
I mean, two stats that really I think paint the picture from this game. So first, completion percentage, I think, which was a huge deal moving the ball. Flacco completed over 60% of his passes. In the 3 games that Richardson played the whole game, first 3 games of the year, he did not have a higher completion percentage than 50%. That was his max. Really hard to sustain drives that way, and it shows with the first downs. The first 3 weeks, the Colts averaged 16 first downs per game. Last week against the Steelers, they had 22. I mean, that's how you win football games. I think Flacco for sure puts them in a better position to win football games right now. But I do think you do have to figure out what you're doing with this asset that you committed to in Richardson. And I do think it's a question of, I do think it ultimately comes down to whether or not you think he gets better by watching or by continuing to throw him out there. Because there is something to be said
there's
for
a question there.
maybe we just sit him and let him watch Flacco run this offense and see him, not make horrible decisions as much and not just do wild things all the time.
The Andy Dalton route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Maybe.
hard to like send a guy out there and then pull him back. But I think you have to consider it, considering you don't want to lose the rest of that locker room, which you have a veteran team that's very much ready to win right now everywhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate problem is like when you have a veteran backup like Flacco, like who just did this last year where he came in and was a better player than the guy that was more heralded. Um, it does put you in a bind of like you go out there, the team knows, and I think the team around him knows, like, yeah, we'd probably be better with Flacco playing quarterback. But they also probably the players know like we know what Richardson's capable of. So it's like it's a weird dynamic. I think a lot of this probably comes down to like I don't think it's anywhere near like losing the locker room level if you put Richardson back in or anything like that. I definitely don't think that's the case. But if he were to continue to be this like true, like the closest thing to a boomer bust player that we've seen in a while, then I think things get dicey if you start to lose a lot, which they were
Yeah.
on pace to be doing, if they didn't pull it out against the Bears and then managed to beat the Steelers despite almost giving that game up anyway. So that's definitely an interesting one. And
Yeah.
then the
They
other one
should be a playoff team.
they should be,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, this year is depends. And then the other one that you brought up to us, Dalton, is it time for the Rams to blow it up? Um, this is a very interesting one because we were just in this situation 2 years ago where we had to have this conversation because of injuries and poor play, and now we're 2 years more down the road and you're having the same thing happen again. So I want
I
to
don't.
ask
I don't
Zach
think
here
it's
first.
poor.
Yeah.
I don't think it's poor play though. I think it's more just you're down two of your best players on your
Yeah, I'm just
roster.
talking more just generally
Um,
from 2 years ago. Yeah.
and I don't think so. I kind of like the response that some of the backup wide receivers have have put forth. Demarcus Robinson has really shown up. Jordan
Tutu,
Whittington. What? Oh,
Tutu Atwell. Hell
yeah,
yeah.
Tutu Atwell. Yes, I mean it was like a long overdue for them. I mean, Kyron Williams is playing very well. I don't necessarily feel like it's at blow it up mode yet. I think that if it gets to blow it up mode, you do it this off season, depending on what the long term news is for Puka and Cup.
I feel like it's like this time next year is when you make that decision because
Yeah.
this year, I mean, what are they 1-3? It's kind of
Yeah.
slipping away, and I mean, the talent's there. Stafford is playing well with backup wide receivers. You know, you have two of the better receivers in the league when they're healthy, and they're just not healthy. And then obviously they have a great running back in Kyron Williams, and their defense has been decimated by injuries too. So I think with the talent that's there, I think it's too right now you can chalk it up to just injuries. But I think if they're in a similar spot around this time next year, then with Stafford only getting older, it might start to come around that time.
Yeah, it's
Because
tricky
I also don't know how high exactly their ceiling is. Last year they started really rough and then snuck in as a wild card team, and then they were a first round exit. So I think it also depends on how high you really think their ceiling is with everyone healthy.
Yeah. And I don't think they can do what they did last year, this year, just looking at their schedule. I mean, they're after this week, I think they're almost certainly going to be 1-4 heading into the bye week.
Yeah.
And then even if they start to get healthy, you look at their next 5 games, they play the Raiders, Vikings, Seahawks, Dolphins, Patriots. They start to get healthy. They could go 3, I think 3-2 is pretty reasonable expectations out of that. That puts you at 4-6. Their last 7 games, they play the Eagles, Saints, Bills, Niners, Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks. That is a brutal schedule. You're looking at 4 wins, maybe 5. If they're spectacular, they go 5-2 that stretch. That puts them at 9-8 and still only maybe getting in, but probably not. So they're probably looking at 8 wins at best with that schedule, and I just don't see the point. I think really what it comes down to is I don't hate the idea of waiting till the offseason to blow it up, but I mean, I think it depends on what you think you can get value-wise at the deadline versus waiting till like the offseason, because I mean, you might be able to get depending on what happens with Tua, you might be able to get the Dolphins or even, maybe Vegas as another team, depending on what they look like
I
the next
see
couple
what's
weeks.
happening here, Dalton. No,
Not just them though. There's
no,
there's a few teams.
I'm just
Cleveland
messing with you.
is another one.
Carolina.
I mean,
That'd be fun.
you know, you might be able, or maybe you say, hey, Colts, give us Richardson and a second for Stafford.
Damn,
Who
that'd
says
be
no?
crazy.
And if you can get good value for Stafford right now, it might be time to pull the trigger. And also, like at this point in the year, you could probably get a second or third for Cooper Kupp from a receiver needy team looking to make a push, like a team like the Chiefs, maybe. And all of a sudden,
Jesus
you make those
Christ.
two moves.
No.
Oh my
I know.
God, that
You
would
make
be
those two
Don't
insane.
even put
moves,
that in the atmosphere.
go 3-14, and get a new quarterback in the draft, and then you have all these picks for a really quick rebuild. It might be the time.
If the Chiefs got Cooper Kupp, that would be like what everybody thought Hollywood Brown would actually do to that offense.
Yeah.
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 So I'll just throw out my thoughts real quick, and then we'll get into our game picks. We're not here too much longer, but I do think for the Rams, my problem, and maybe this is just the like part of my brain that's like, man, I don't like to blow stuff up that I still see a vision with. Until Stafford stops playing like a top 10 quarterback, I'm gonna have a hard time not trying to figure out how to make that work. Like that's kind of my thing because I thought a couple years ago that he'd be done by now, just because the injuries mounting and just everything. But that dude's going out there every week and still just being a gamer and looking real damn good doing it. And I know that they have a lot of problems right now this season, but if you could tell me that Stafford's going to come back next year, that Puka gets healthy, that Cup is going to be able to stick around for another year, that you can invest in some offensive line help, that you can, especially the tackles, and you have your picks now for 2 years in a row. You're about to have them with technically three, or most of them for 3 years in a row. And you can tell me like you can help out some of the stuff that they're dealing with right now. I'd want another shot at it with him if you
Fair.
could do it. Now, granted, you do run the risk of like not being able to get any value for those guys if it doesn't work out next year, but we know the Rams don't really give a shit about that. They're always about, can we try to win a Super Bowl right now? And it worked once. It was starting to look like it could work again last year. And yeah, is it going to work this year? No. But again, it's Stafford. If he tells me like, yeah, dude, I want to come back, I'll be like, all right, hell yeah, let's go to work. Like that's what I'm gonna want to do. So but I get the Madden player in me wants to trade everybody. I might trade the punter. I don't know. Like I don't care. But to me, it's like if Stafford's playing like this, like I said, I can't. It's really hard for me to not want to try again with him.
Yeah.
It's fair.
But I do get the thought process. But let's get into our week.
Shout out
our
to
week
my
five
girlfriend
picks.
in the chat.
Oh
Hello.
yes. Oh, okay. I was wondering who that was. I was gonna shout that out, but
I told her that we were going, and she's like, "Where is it? I want to watch."
Awesome, cool. Appreciate you being here. So with the picks for this week, we're gonna do something a little bit different than we were doing. I talked to you guys about it beforehand, but with Zach and I and Tony, when we kind of just went through each game and just made our picks. I want to have an upset pick specifically, so not many options for it this week,
Yeah,
but
I
a
was about to say
plus
there's not many
four.
options.
Yeah, but a +4 odds or worse for teams that you think could win this week. So that's one of your picks, and then a potential blowout pick. So 2+ score win that you think is going to happen in the league this week. So just shout them out when we get to them throughout the games. You don't have to tell me them ahead of time, but as we go down the line, if it's one of those games, just let us know basically. So we'll start with the London game, Jets at Vikings.
9:30.
Technically 9:30. But yeah,
Dalton
Jesus
and
Christ.
Jake, where are you guys?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm in PA.
Okay.
Like physically?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
physically.
I'm in Europe right now. I'm in France.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say enjoy that 6:30 a.m. kickoff. If you're on the West Coast, because I know you.
Yeah.
Guys are,
That's a smooth 3:30 p.m. game for me.
Oh yeah, he's
That's
living.
nice.
He's
That's
living.
nice.
Yeah.
No, but so we're gonna start with that game. London games are always something for sure. Technically Jets at Vikings, but it's
It's
London,
neutral.
so it's just the Jets and the Vikings at
Tottenham Hotspur
basically.
Stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
Is anyone
Um,
picking the Jets here?
Absolutely
So
not,
no, yeah,
Absolutely
this
not.
was one I didn't think would have to spend too much time.
No.
I understand like the this could be the week the Vikings fall apart for a game because we all think they're not going to, but the Jets legitimately piss me off so much that I don't even want to pick them, no matter what the
Yeah.
circumstances are.
They could not beat a Broncos team that scored 10 points. Absolutely not.
They couldn't beat
Negative
a
first half passing yards.
negative first half passing
Yes,
yards.
yes.
I know the weather is bad, but like
They let Bo Nix throw
No.
the first touchdown of his career.
yeah,
Aaron Rodgers is a slight upgrade over Zach Wilson.
damn, we're reaching that point.
Well, like,
already.
well,
It's
think
true.
about this though. But think about this. You didn't have Garrett Wilson complaining when Zach Wilson was throwing him the ball. Like he's just out there doing what he had to do.
Here's
He's
since this is gonna be a quick one, let me just throw this out there. The thing about Aaron Rodgers is that if he obviously is capable of being, especially in the past, one of the greatest players to ever play the sport at the quarterback position. The problem is one of the reasons why that is because he has to have very specific rules with his receivers and they have to be very on time with
he
him all the
pisses
time.
everybody off.
To the point where it's ridiculous, right? To the point where like if you're not Devonte Adams or Jordy Nelson or fucking Alan Lazard for some reason, it doesn't work. You can't just go play receiver for this guy. Like Garrett
Nathaniel
Wilson's out there
Hackett.
running the wrong route for him all the time because he has weird shit that he has them do depending on what he's saying. And I get he's that smart. Like he's looking for things. He needs you to be in the right place. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I'm saying it's something that takes time to kind of do. And you didn't play last year and you were at some RFK Jr. event in the offseason instead of hanging out with your receivers. Nobody cares about the fact that you can't play quarterback this way because you did it to yourself. Like, that's my ultimate problem with this offense right now. Also, Brees Hall looks like shit. Braylon Allen, who I do love, Wisconsin fan, you guys know that, is the better running back on this team right now for some reason. Can't figure that one out. Everything about the Jets is weird, and I'm not picking them in a game until they beat somebody I care about. That's kind of where I'm at with them.
You never want your quarterback to be a vice presidential candidate in the offseason.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not doing it. So we all picked the Vikings. Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Not have to think about it too much. Ravens at Bengals. Interesting game. We kind of talked about where the Bengals are at, where the Ravens are at. So I kind of have a feeling I know where you guys are going with this possibly. But Jake, I want you to kick us off with this one.
Yeah, I'm going Ravens.
Yeah.
Just the Bengals did grab their first win of the season last week, but I mentioned earlier how they still didn't look that great on defense. And
Yeah.
the Ravens kind of, I mean, I did mention they should be 4-0, I think, but they're at least they're very close to it. But they kind of shocked me with how well they played against the Bills. So just coming off of that performance, it's hard
whip
for
that
me
ass.
especially with how bad the Bengals defense looks, it's hard for me to not take the Ravens.
Yeah. What do you think, Dalton?
Taking Baltimore. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
I do think this Bengals team's bad.
it's not
Yeah.
good right now. What do you think, Zach?
King Henry's running all over Cincinnati.
For sure.
I'm not comfortable calling it a blowout because it's a division game. But if it wasn't a division game, I would be a bit more comfortable.
Fair enough. This is my blowout pick, by the way, because I legitimately think that this is going to be the game that puts the Bengals pretty much out of it. I think they're going to get absolutely obliterated by this Ravens team. And I think it's going to be a microcosm of the rest of their season where the offense might be good enough to kind of keep it close early. But I think late in the game against Derrick Henry, they're going to run out of gas defensively, and he's going to be able to just kind of take things home for them. I really think that's kind of where this game is going. I could see a 35-20 situation, something along those lines, where like the Bengals offense isn't terrible, but they can't keep pace, right? Because the Ravens offense is just too good for them to deal with. So yeah, we're all on the same page there. I kind of thought that might be the case, so that's interesting. Colts at Jaguars. I made this pick as soon as I saw where like that it was at Jaguars. I was just gonna say that because historically speaking. But what do you think, Zach? I'll start with you.
I'm gonna go Indianapolis just because Jacksonville looks horrific.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of like redeeming qualities for the Jaguars right now, and alongside of some other head coaches, I think Doug Peterson could be on the short list of first fired this season. Um, it just depends on. I think this matchup is going to be a big nail in that coffin if it doesn't end up in a win, and I think that the Colts are a bit more motivated at the moment. So yeah,
I understand that. I
Yeah.
do. What do you think, Dalton?
See, I think the Jags are a pretty good 0-4 team. I mean, they have a lot of flaws, but I
Love
don't
that.
think they are as bad as the record shows. And I think they're playing a Colts team that I just have zero trust in Anthony Richardson to consistently move the ball with that offense, assuming he plays this week. But even if not, I mean, I do think this is the week that the Jags steal a win in a divisional game. I think Travis Etienne has a big game against the suspect Colts run defense. And yeah, I think the Jags grind out an ugly. This is one of your classic ugly AFC South games.
Yeah, classic
19-16.
Yeah,
take those rushing
get that.
yards.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jake?
I agree. I think this is where Jacksonville gets their first win, and since we're just talking about it, this is one of those games where I think if Joe Flacco plays, the Colts actually stand a better chance here. But I think with how inconsistent Richardson is right now, I think this Jaguars team is just pissed off, really. And divisional games are always weird, so I think it'll be close. And yeah, this is going to be a classic, beautiful AFC South game.
Yeah. So I'm picking the Jaguars because, and I know that every year is a new year, but the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2013.
Yeah, that too.
It's a pretty hefty streak, and I feel like there's something about it that you sometimes in the sport you got to kind of go with like the vibes, right? The vibes are not good when the Colts go to Jacksonville. It's not
Hey,
good.
hey,
Like
I took the vibes the first year I went out to Vegas, and that was the first time UVA beat Virginia Tech in my lifetime. So
fair enough. Point is I'm going to go with the history. I do think the Jaguars are due to a certain degree to get a win here, and I think the Colts are not so good of a team that they cannot do it. We just saw the Jaguars take the Texans to the wire. They are capable of playing good football. They tend to not do it enough and for long enough for it to matter. But at some point, I think that dam will break. Now, does that mean that I think that they're going to go on a run after that? No, this might be their only win for a while. But I do think if they're going to get one, this would be the week to do it, historically speaking. So I'll go with the Jaguars here. Dolphins at Patriots. Could be the season on the line for the Dolphins, in my opinion, depending on how this game goes. So this is a big one. I'm gonna let Zach kick us off here with this one because I want to see what he thinks about his team's chances here.
let me look at something real quick.
Okay.
I have to look at the depth chart because I have no idea what the. Jeez, that's so much red. Okay. So, I mean, Terran Armstead's questionable. That's your
No.
question there. So as long as he gets solid snaps, I'm not as I don't know what to think of the offensive line anymore. They started out really.
I think the
well.
best thing to do would be to not think about it too hard. But
Yeah, they started out really well though, and you have to give them that. It's
I
just
don't have to do that.
I'm hating the Jordan Poyer signing every day.
Didn't he like kill Jalen Phillips' knee in that game? Is that not how he got hurt?
Oh, if that
Pretty
is
sure.
how he got hurt, that
I'm
makes
like
perfect
90% sure
sense.
I saw a video clip of him running through his knee on
Oh
a
yeah,
tackle
that's right.
attempt.
And we
So
lost Jalen Phillips. I went
Yeah.
to work during the Dolphins game, so
just for the best.
yeah, it was for the best. It was absolutely for the best. Look, if McDaniel can again, if as I said earlier, if McDaniel can sit there and look at his heart of hearts and acknowledge that he needs to make some changes into this offense, then maybe they might stand a chance. Uh, I really hope that Miami wins, and I do think that they will win because the Patriots are that bad right now on offense. Um, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I do not think it's going to be easy.
All right. What do you think, Dalton?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think the Dolphins, I think just because the Patriots roster is so bad, I just don't think the Patriots are capable of winning many games at all this year against anybody. So I think Miami, especially because they need this win, really badly just to stay around. I think the Dolphins find a way.
I mean, shoot, after watching Amon-Ra St. Brown throw a touchdown, I'm sure Tyreek has gone to McDaniel this week and be like, let
I
me
got
go
you.
under center.
I
Let me
got
do
you.
it. I'll do it.
Fair enough. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, this feels like a crisp 13-10 Dolphins win.
Mm-hmm.
I actually
Close
think
ones.
we could see a pretty decent game from Huntley though. Some Pro Bowl caliber.
Pro Bowl
quarterback
Tyler
play.
Huntley quarterback performance. So I hate to break the streak here, but I'm picking the Patriots because one, they are
What
at
streak?
home.
I
believe.
broke the streak last week or last game.
I meant about the Dolphins. In this
Dolphins.
particular
I thought you meant all of
picks.
us agreeing. I thought you meant all
No,
of us
yeah,
agreeing.
Dolphins
I was
picks, yeah.
the center last.
No, Dolphins specifically. I hate to be the one to do that, but Patriots are at home, which does mean a little bit to me. And also, I think that this current iteration of the Dolphins, between injuries and everything going on, is the worst football team on the planet right now, at least in the NFL. So I'm going to take a really bad team against perhaps the worst team, in my opinion, currently going. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Do I think the Patriots are capable of losing this game? Absolutely. They're not good, but the Dolphins are somehow worse to me right now. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I hope legitimately hope I'm wrong because the Patriots don't have anything to play for and they have no reason to play for anything. At least the Dolphins have something they could potentially play for. So rather than win. Browns at Commanders. Oh boy. What do you think, Dalton?
So I think I'm gonna stick with the way the Commanders have been playing really well and the Browns have not. I think I'm just gonna stick with that until it breaks. So until I see a change, I think we gotta take the Commanders here. It wouldn't surprise me if the Browns won this game because I do think Deshaun Watson was slowly figuring some things out, and we'll see if that continues. And the Commanders defense is a great team to do that against. But I do think overall, I think you gotta keep going with the Commanders. They seem like the better team right now. And they're home.
Jake? Yeah, what do you think, Jake?
I'm going with the Commanders. This game is actually my blowout of the week.
I love that.
I
love that
really don't like the vibes around the Browns right now.
Is it perhaps
I can't imagine why
because of the owner, right? It's not because of anything else. It's the owner,
Yeah.
right?
But they're playing like the opposite of complimentary football. Like they just are
That's
not.
actually awesome. Yeah.
You know, like the offense is bad. The defense is not as good as it was last year, which was really besides Joe Flacco's comeback of the year run. Besides that, I mean, the defense really kind of helped them into the playoffs. But it's just not up to that caliber this year. And the Commanders' offense just looks really good. I love Jaden Daniels. I was huge on Jaden Daniels when we did the draft
Jake
show.
is taking laps on us right now,
Like,
until proven otherwise. He's going to continue to do so.
Yeah,
Give it a couple of years.
but
as he should.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this is the ultimate like bad vibes game for the Browns, really.
Fair. I'm gonna jump in here real quick, but I need to mention because Jake, you mentioned what was it? Crap, I lost it actually. Zach, go ahead because I want to make a reference to something you said, Jake.
I was just jaw dropping because I didn't realize they changed the name from FedEx Field to Northwest Stadium.
Yeah,
that's kind of depressing. I just really hope that the local fan base comes out in droves to support a team that finally deserves their support. It's not fair to the Commanders that are playing this game to be out fanned in the stands. So show up and cheer your team on. There's never been a better product to cheer on than this current form. Yeah, I think I'm not. It's not my blowout, but I definitely think Washington's going to win this game. I'm really excited to hopefully see them continue to have some success and prove me wrong. Because when it's a happy Washington, it's fun around here. So.
Yeah, I'm sure for you it's kind of also a little bit of rooting interest just because of the area.
I've seen the Capitals win a Stanley Cup. I've seen the Nationals win a World Series. The Wizards are just ass. So that's a different conversation altogether.
Truly ass.
To see the Commanders come back and like be a respectable franchise, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm also going with the Commanders, but I realized what you said, Jake, that made me laugh is when you talked about Joe Flacco, when he comeback player of the year, and I thought about the fact that all the memes of like, what did Joe Flacco come back from exactly? Being on the Jets,
Being asked.
yeah, being
Being
asked, being
awful.
on the Jets.
I mean,
Like,
that's
I think
legitimately
could,
being a comeback
yeah,
player of a year, though. I mean,
yeah.
Hey,
Do you think Sam,
Deshaun Watson could win comeback
if
player
he
of the year.
wins comeback player of the year,
Different kind of
I will
comeback
only
player.
that's
accept it if they spell it the way that we're all thinking. If they,
that's
that's the only
quite
way I'll accept
if
it.
Deshaun Watson wins comeback player of the year, that's quite the double entendre.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Because the problem is, I don't know if you could let him into this to the award show.
No, no.
I don't know if you could. I don't know if he could be allowed in the building because I'm sure yeah, we're not gonna.
Keep him at a table by himself.
Yeah, that's what we'd have to do. Yeah, he'd have to be by himself. Yes.
Jesus.
Moving on. Anyway, Bills at Texans. This is a very interesting game to me because we just saw the Texans struggle to beat the Jaguars, but ultimately pulled out, and the Bills get absolutely shit stomped by the Ravens pretty badly. Very interesting kind of dynamic between these two teams right now. I think a lot of so. I'm gonna go with Jake here. I want to see what you think first.
I'm going with the Bills. They did just get destroyed last week, but I don't. I was really high on the Texans before the season began, but I don't. I think they might be. They're still playoff contenders, but I think they might be a little, at least in my mind, more overrated than I might have considered before the season. Um, I don't know. This really could go either way. I don't feel too confident saying the Bills will win this, but I do feel more confident in the Bills overall than the Texans. And if this was a super like hostile environment to play, I'd probably go with the Texans. And no disrespect to their home crowd, but it doesn't seem like a too much of a home field advantage situation. So I don't know. I would go Bills, but I'm not too confident in it. This kind of feels like a toss up to me.
Fair enough. What do you think, Dalton?
Yeah, I'm also going Bills here. I just don't think that. I think they're just not going to do what they did 2 weeks in a row, and I think this is also possibly a big fuck you, Stephon Diggs game.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Ooh,
I totally did not even think about that.
So
Yeah.
I'm on the opposite, and because I think this is gonna be a big fuck you game from Stephon Diggs.
Possibility.
And I think partially because the Bills are gonna be without Ed Oliver, Austin Johnson, Taylor Rapp, and Khalil Shakir. That's a lot of talent to not have at your
Yeah.
disposal, especially on defense. They still have the talent on offense to like get it done. In Houston, I'm just not. Shakir's been a massive piece for Buffalo this season, on especially in the passing game. And like if the rushing game is on, then yeah, that's cool. But like I there's not a lot behind him. I mean, Keon Coleman has had some flashes, but he has also struggled a decent amount this season with like hauling some stuff in and stuff like that. So I think the injuries are going to play a bigger part of this game, and the Stephon Diggs is going to be out to just be like, yeah, no, I'm that dude, guys. Like you guys should have made it work. Which I mean, I think in both instances for both parties, it's better off.
Yeah. I'll just say real quickly, I am also on the side of the Texans, partly because of injuries, also because I just think the Bills' defense just isn't actually that great. I think that they've beat up on some bad offenses in some cases, and then the games that they played good offenses. Cardinals put up a good amount of points on them. Definitely could have won that game. Ravens blew them out last week. Like, I think they're missing pieces, and I think that once they kind of settle back in with injuries and everything, I think they'll be fine. I think they're still going to win this division, but I do think the Texans have a better shot today, or on Sunday specifically in this case. Let's get through these picks a little bit quicker because I know some of you guys have to get going here. Panthers at Bears. I'll start off with this one real quick. This is my upset pick of the week. Now, part of it is because it's one of the only ones that I thought was even like worth trying to throw out personally. But this is my upset pick for that reason, but also because the Bears are very much a team that I think can kind of hang with anybody any given week with the way their defense is playing, but also could lose to literally almost anybody as well. Yeah, offense is just in a weird spot. Like Williams is improving, but the offensive structure I don't love. definitely the whole Shane Waldron thing is kind of seeming to be true.
Anybody that turns around and says that Khalil Herbert is your third down goal line back because he is big, and then watching all of his tape and realize that's not how he runs at all.
It's just a lot of weird stuff on offense. So I think the Panthers are good enough offensively to at least give themselves a chance to win this game, and I think that they very well could. So that's my upset pick. But let's go to Jake for this next one.
Yeah, I'm going Panthers here.
Okay.
I I just don't think the Bears are very good, and obviously the Panthers are also not very good. But
Yeah.
they since Andy Dalton's came in, they've actually looked like a competent football team, and their offense has scored 24 points last week and 30 plus the week before. I don't think their defense is bad, but I don't have a lot of trust in the Bears right now. So
how are these tickets $165?
The NFL, baby, premium product.
Well,
Dalton, what do you got for this?
I mean, Indianapolis and Jacksonville are 21.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
I'm taking the Bears just because I do think like the Bears I think are going to slowly continue to improve throughout the year, and I think it was a nice change of pace bringing in Andy Dalton for the Panthers, but I do think we're going to slowly see that they're still a very bad team, and Andy Dalton's a very meh quarterback. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Fair enough. What do you got, Zach?
Bears win, Panthers cover.
Oh, nice.
That's losers, the viewers.
Yeah. Losers.
I mean, I think the Bears will be able to get enough defensive stops and stuff to let the game. It's going to be a close one, but I don't think that the Bears drop this. Yeah, it's bad. That's bad.
Fair enough. Raiders at Broncos. I'm gonna let the two Raiders guys go first here. Let's go with Dalton first this time.
So I do think I just really don't know what to think with the Raiders right now.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, it's really ugly.
I can't put my finger on one thing.
I do think that they probably win this game just because I don't think the Broncos are that great. I do, and the Raiders have just, for the last several years, consistently found ways to beat Denver.
Yeah,
and I don't see that changing this week. Depending on who they get back. Tentatively looking at the injury report, I think Jake is Crosby back this week.
He hasn't practiced this week.
Yeah,
so
that's the tricky part.
Think so.
Yeah, depending on if he's back, I think that makes a huge deal. But I'm gonna tentatively say they win this game, but I'm fully prepared for them to not.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat. The Broncos have never beaten the Las Vegas Raiders, and last time they beat the Raiders was when they were in Oakland, and it was before COVID ever existed. So the Raiders have just the last time Denver beat the Raiders, the world didn't know what COVID was.
Damn.
The Raiders just, no matter how bad they are, which is at times very bad, somehow managed to beat this team. And if Bo Nix gave me any confidence whatsoever, I would definitely take the Broncos here. I don't think Max Crosby plays, which makes this pretty much a toss-up. But, it's the Raiders, so I say this very carefully, but I would take them in this one.
Yeah. The rest of that front seven looks great.
Yeah, they've been better. I'll throw it out that I have the Broncos winning because I think it will be very funny. Because I think the only way they win is because the game is hilarious.
This could be like just the best game of Bo Nix's career.
Yeah. More importantly, I think it'd be really funny if he's just as bad as he was last week and they still win. Because then what's the game script for that? Like what has to happen?
Williams.
A 9-6 Broncos win.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't know. But I'm picking the Broncos because I think that is the funniest outcome that could happen is them winning somehow. So that's what I'm gonna do. What do you think, Zach?
I'm gonna go Las Vegas here. The whole -7 yards is very, very, very alarming.
Hell yeah, dude.
It makes it really hard to bet on Bo Nix.
And like, look, I get that the weather was awful, and that definitely was a reason and part of the reason why. But like, come on, Sean Payton. I think I don't know how much it's Bo Nix and how much it's Sean Payton is vastly overrated in his play calling and quarterback.
Sean Payton's cooked.
Well, the thing about Sean Payton, he's still trying to call the play call right now because he's still trying to figure out how many more words he can fit into it. That's all I have to say about it.
Who is he? John Gruden?
Cardinals at 49ers. if I thought the Cardinals, I'll just kick this one off. If I thought the Cardinals could play a lick of defense, I'd be really more interested in this game. But I really don't think they can play a lick of defense, guys. I really
Brock
don't.
Purdy's also playing some really good football.
He is playing very well. So I think that the Niners win this one pretty comfortably. I almost chose this as my blowout pick, but I felt it was like a little too on the nose. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. But this is I'm going definitely Niners here. What do you think, Zach?
I'm gonna say Niners, but I also think Arizona covers because I love Arizona's offense. When they're running, they're running. I think they can give San Francisco some trouble. Because I think this is the season that they're like, hey, it's now or never. Either this is going to be the iteration that does something or it doesn't. But yeah, I think San Francisco, like I said, Brock Purdy's been playing very well, despite missing Christian McCaffrey, which is massive. I think that's a very big step for him. So yeah, I'll go San Francisco.
Okay, what do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I agree. 49ers win. Arizona covers. I think their offense is good enough to keep this a close game. And it's a divisional game, so they're always kind of weird. But yeah, I don't see the 49ers losing this at home.
So Jake and Shane, you guys already know where I'm going with this. This is my upset this week.
Yeah, it is.
I really like the Cardinals. I think they are a better team than 1-3. And I think the Niners are they're just gonna have a shaky regular season. I think by the end of the regular season into the playoffs, they're gonna be fine. But like I could see them only winning like maybe 11 games in the regular season. You know, I could see that. And I think this is one that divisional game. I think the Cardinals steal one.
Yeah,
fair enough. I really don't blame you because with the way this offense is played at times this year, they could always steal a game from a Niners team that the defense is not healthy particularly and also just not playing particularly great.
Yep.
So fair enough. Packers at Rams. Kind of similarly to the Cardinals game where like I just think the Rams simply can't play defense and the offense is being propped up by Matthew Stafford just trying his best out there. I know the Packers are kind of dealing with some weird stuff with Love where the turnovers are a problem, but that was against the Vikings defense. Not going to face quite the same level of difficulty this week, I would say. Give me Packers pretty comfortably, I would say, ultimately. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I agree. No matter how much Stafford tries, I don't think he can win this one. I just think, I don't know. The Packers are just better than the injured Rams.
For sure.
Yeah, this is my blowout pick this week.
Yeah, makes sense. It was one of the ones on my list for sure. So I get that. Zach, any difference there? Are you gonna hang with us?
Green Bay will win this game. Jordan Love gets his first win of the season.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, he needs it. Giants at Seahawks. Oh boy. Yeah. Geno Smith playing really good football. The defense had certainly a moment this past week. The Lions had quite literally a perfect game, pretty much. Jared Goff went out there through a perfect game, so interesting place for them to be at. But I do think it's not quite as difficult of a matchup, I would say, against the Giants coming to town. I'm taking the Seahawks. Is there anyone who wants to give the Giants a shot here?
Well, I was going to say this is my blowout of the week for the Seahawks.
Fair enough. So, all right, cool.
I especially with Malik Neighbors out, I don't know how.
Hey, incoming
Wan'Dale Robinson legacy
20,
game.
Yeah, 22 catch, 72-yard game by Wan'Dale Robinson coming up.
Yeah, 72 yards.
Yeah,
I saw a tweet and it said 30 reception, 45 yards.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh my god.
That dude is the most running back playing receiver guy I've ever seen in my entire life.
His name's not Cordero Patterson.
Listen, at least Cordero Patterson was big and fast. Robinson is just small and quick. Yeah. Anyway, like I legitimately think if you like swapped Devin Singletary and him, I wouldn't be able to figure out who was who for like a while. Like I'm pretty sure if you did just switch their roles, I don't know if it would take very long for me, or it would take a while for me to think about it. Cowboys at Steelers, and I will say, I am obviously here, so do not hurt my feelings, regardless of who you pick. Cowboys and Steelers. I'll save myself for last, of course, on this one. Zach, what do you think with this one?
I'm gonna have to go with Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. All right.
Because I have no idea what's going on in Dallas right now.
They don't either.
I mean, talk about. I tweeted this out during the Miami game, and it fits it very, very fittingly. I said that Miami's offensive moves, off-season moves, age like fine milk. I would say the same for Dallas, but their lack of off-season moves age like fine milk because like it's very telling that them not investing in anything outside of their own team and retaining players has greatly cost them for the start of the season. Um, I don't necessarily feel like it is on Dak's shoulders. He could be. I mean, that gets to the point where do you expect more from the rest of the roster, or are you expecting Dak Prescott to be the sole factor of lifting this team into wins? And I mean, I don't feel like that's with the way that football is constructed, that is not fair to assume that role on one person because it's almost impossible, as opposed to other sports. So I think Dallas is this game, but it's not a Dak issue. They have to figure something else out on this roster because it's not a quarterback issue.
Yeah. What do you think, Dalton?
So yeah, I'm taking the Cowboys here. Simply because one rival. I think it's weird. It's a non-conference game, but it is still a rivalry game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that causes things to be weird at times. Also, I think the Cowboys, our team so far, has underperformed this year, and the Steelers are a team that, sorry, Shane, has probably overperformed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think this is just like we're at that point in the season where I think things start to level out a little bit, and I just think that this is one of those games where we just see a little bit of a correction to the norm, and I think the Cowboys get one.
All right. What do you think, Jake?
I'm going Steelers. I think their defense's performance last week is going to be an outlier compared to their whole season because before last week they had given up the least amount of points of any team in the NFL, and they had to deal with comeback player of the year Joe Flacco. So
Of course.
you
Yeah.
know what can you really
Can't
do?
fault him for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Cowboys' offense is just pretty one-dimensional at this point. They only can really throw the ball, and I just don't know how well you can do against this Steelers defense, which I think is the best in the league, in Pittsburgh. So I also really like Justin Fields, and I think he's getting better as the season goes on. So I don't think this is a blowout by any means, but I do think Pittsburgh could win this one.
And for me, I'm picking the Steelers, and the biggest reason ultimately is the fact that I can't name some of the guys who are probably going to play edge rusher for them at times this week. Like ultimately, like with the Cowboys team right now, they have so many key injuries to the defense, in particular the edge rushers. I simply don't know if they can affect the Steelers' offense enough in the run or pass game to outscore them offensively. Because I think the defense is going to be totally fine against this Cowboys team because we just saw a Giants defense keep them in check for the most part. And sorry to the Giants, but they don't have the Steelers talent on defense. Like the tackle position is a problem for the Cowboys as well. And I know TJ didn't have his best week last week. It's a different unit he's dealing with this week. Like I don't think that Herbig or him will have much trouble getting after the quarterback. And if the Cowboys are one dimensional offensively, that plays in the hands of the Steelers because they aren't the best at dealing with a diverse offense. But if they know kind of what you're trying to do, that's when they can really get after you. The other thing is this would be a weird game for them to lose because of all the injuries, and they already had a weird loss last week. So Tomlin got his weird loss out of his system where everything goes wrong. We can wait a while before that happens again, so I don't think it'll happen this week. That's kind of where I'm at with that game too.
Yeah.
But our last game of the week, Saints at Chiefs. Chiefs have been interesting 4-0 team to say the least. They just find ways to win, man, and that's kind of what it comes down to when you're at that level that the Chiefs are at. So, Dalton, what do you think about this game?
So I didn't think of this, but I guess I have two upsets this week because I'm taking the Saints. I just think that at some point the wheels got to fall off for the Chiefs, and I do think, when things don't snowball in the second half on awful Raiders teams, Derek Carr's played really well in these primetime games against the Chiefs. I think he's very familiar with all the weird stuff Spagnuolo is going to do. Also, another guy on that roster that's very familiar with Spagnuolo's defense that they have in their locker room, Tyrann Mathieu. I think that actually is a factor you can't discount. And yeah, I just think this is just matchup wise. I think it's a time where I think the Saints defense can keep that Chiefs offense in check. And yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of a shootout, but like a weird 28-27 type game. And yeah, I think the Saints defense does enough that Carr can win it for him.
Fair enough. What do you think, Zach?
If you haven't been keeping track, this is also my upset of the week. I think that the Saints are going to come out a little pissed after the past 2 weeks, especially that Eagles game. And then last week was just that was something.
The Troy Anderson game, they will call it.
Yeah. So they definitely have a couple of injuries to look out for, and like the Taysom Hill thing is a bit weird because he is an asset to your team. However,
Best player on the team, right?
I am finally glad that they have realized that you do not take the quarterback out to insert him into the field of play, because I think somebody mentioned earlier about somebody going in and out, or when we were talking about Richardson, like it just ruins the flow of the offense. Like just taking when they had Drew Brees out there and they would take Drew Brees out for like 2 plays, throw Taysom Hill in there. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why? But no, I think New Orleans has all the right buttons to press to make Kansas City sweat and lose their first game this season.
All right, what do you think, Jake?
This could be bad, but this is also my upset.
Oh no!
This week, so
Derek Carr 3 interception game coming up.
The Chiefs are laughing at us.
Spagnuolo.
I think they may have just assassinated Jake. Oh,
yeah, my light just shut off for some
there we
reason.
go. Cool. I was worried they got you, man. I was worried.
Well, it wasn't the Chiefs that did it, Shane. The refs assassinated him.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They threw the flag to take the shot.
The Chiefs are such like a fraudulent 4-0, and it's very possible they win the Super Bowl anyways. But I mean, they have a win off of Isaiah likely having big feet, a pass interference call. They have a win off of the Falcons just with some horrible late game play calling, and then they narrowly beat the Chargers this past week. They're 4-0, but they very realistically could be 2-2. And as a Raiders fan, I've seen Derek Carr have a lot of pretty good performances in Kansas City and just not win games because it's the Raiders.
Yeah.
But
Deshaun Jackson, please stand up.
Yeah.
God.
I don't even want to think about that.
Nightmare fuel that play.
Raiders Deshaun Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well-known Raiders Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Carr can bring this one out. And I just feel like the Chiefs are due for a loss at this point because they've really been skirting on the edge throughout this whole season. So I feel like this is a week their luck kind of runs out.
I wish I had the guts to do what you guys are doing, but I do have the Chiefs winning this game because I feel like they are the ultimate situational football team. They make the exact amount of plays they need to win, and they make sure that you don't make the plays you need to make to win. And that's about all they're capable of right now because of the way the roster is constructed and the injuries at receiver and everything else. But it's been working, and they are one of the few teams where I do trust that they can kind of find a way to continue to manufacture that until they figure something else out. And Saints, although they had the hot start, I just don't know if they are a good enough team to be able to prevent them from doing that ultimately. That's kind of what it comes down to. I could easily see this game definitely going the Saints' way. Definitely not going to rule that out at all.
Clint Kubiak, I see.
I mean, I do like what he's doing, but again, I just feel like until I don't know if this is going to be the Saints that derail this thing the Chiefs are doing right now. It's going to get derailed by somebody eventually, and they're going to have to figure something else out.
I feel if Kansas City wins, it will have to come from a masterful defensive performance. Because
and
given
that
the
could
issues
happen.
Given the issues at running back and wide receiver, I just don't know who they end up passing and completing offensive plays to keep up with the New Orleans offense that has shown the ability to blow up this season.
Yeah, absolutely. But so that's our picks for this week. That's the show for this week, guys. I know you guys got to get going, Zach and Dalton. So that'll be it for us this week. Definitely will be back either Friday or Saturday next week. We'll have to see what works best for everybody. But You will see us hopefully every week the rest of the season. We'll see how that goes. And we shouted out on the betting podcast, but the draft show will also be coming back at some point, probably the end of or beginning of next month. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
See you guys.